So I was on my way to meet up with a friend to play golf, and I had the radio on, and all of a sudden they came in and they said, "Hey, somebody's flown into the towers down in New York."
And I almost immediately got a phone call from work, and they told me that there was a search and rescue team, a FEMA search and rescue team that was being deployed from Beverly Airport.
I was covering Fashion Week for the Boston Herald with photographer George Martell, and we were actually at a maternity wear fashion show.
My mother was giving me updates as I was driving down. She said, don't go there, it's a terror attack. She told me about the plane that hit the Pentagon, and I was pretty scared.
And we hopped in the car and just started barreling down to New York. It was overwhelming. It's still overwhelming, because the first thought that really stuck in my mind that morning, and does 10 years later, was, my God, all those people, how many are dead?
One of them had gone out and rustled up a priest to come and bless them. And I remember we were all standing around under a flagpole at Beverly Airport. And the blessing was for them, of course, but I remember looking around and thinking, I wonder which of us won't be coming back, because we really had no idea what we were walking into.
When I talked to my editor, a plane had gone into the World Trade Center, and I think by the time I had sort of like gotten the stuff I needed to go down there, the second one had gone in. It's a really long walk down, and while I was walking down, the towers crumbled, and our photographer, George, was right down there. I mean, he had to run for his life into a parking garage, and unfortunately, he saw terrible things. I think that probably will stay with him forever, of people jumping out of buildings.
I was down on Wall Street trying to get over to Ground Zero, and I looked off to my right, and I can still see it to this day. It's that famous picture that you see of the skeleton-like appearance of the building that was just kind of swaying, and it was like the last piece standing on the west side. And I'll just never forget seeing that with all the debris raining from the sky.
There was nobody out except for military with machine guns. These streets were completely deserted. There were no taxis, there were no cars, there were no other human beings.
Our assignment for today was to get the shots from New Jersey looking across the Hudson. So we managed to get ourselves, after much maneuvering, down to Jersey City, where we were able to get out on a jetty with the Statue of Liberty in the foreground, and of course the horror going on behind us. It's just massive cloud of smoke.
People and businessmen just covered in ash, and my clothes were covered, and I didn't wash things for months, because I felt like, I felt like there was life on my clothes that I just couldn't bear to take to a dry cleaner.
My role there was to tell the people back in Boston what was going on that day in New York, and these were people from Boston that were on the planes. There was a lot of people that were Massachusetts natives in those buildings.
You had to put aside the fact that you were watching these guys carrying out plastic pails of body parts and body bags that weren't completely full. The great thing was that we had all these local men and women and dogs that were down there helping out one of the greatest rescue and recovery efforts in the country's history.
It was on such a massive scale. I mean, the first night, when I stayed down there, I mean, there were just so many lights to light it all up when they were, it was huge.
I stopped the doctor and started talking to him. I said, I'm from the Boston Herald, I'm covering this horrible tragedy. Can you tell me a little bit about what you're seeing in there? He had some blood on him and he was covered in dust, so he had obviously been inside where this happened, and he just looked at me and he said, there's no one down there for me to help. And that was, what I remember the most.
There were a few times during the day I just totally was overwhelmed and sat on the curb and cried.
Are you with the media and they'd hold up a picture and just say, this is my brother, I think he might be alive, he might have hit his head, he might be in a hospital. you know, this is my sister, can you put her picture in the paper, maybe someone will find her, and
Could you look for this person? And you, sorry, you're always carrying that guilt of knowing that there was nobody alive there, but you couldn't tell anybody that because that's all they had to, it was the only hope they had to hold on to.
You know, I was there as a journalist, you know, as a historian, as a documentarian. That's kind of the role I felt there, that, you know, firefighters say, you know, don't forget. And that's why we make pictures, so no one forgets.
You walk in a lot of worlds when you're a reporter. I think it teaches you to sort of compartmentalize it all, you know. You gotta fit them all in your mental space.
I think for journalists, and I've talked to a lot of them, I think there were issues about feeling like, because help was offered, but you didn't feel like you had any right to get help, because help was needed with, the families needed help, and the search and rescue guys needed help, and the police, and the New York City firefighters, and the Port Authority.
it was definitely life-changing, and you know, but as I said before, I had a job to do that day. I'm proud of the job that I did that day. I think, you know, we did some amazing work down there, and we, you know, we were part of bringing the news to the people in Boston that needed to know what was going on there.
I was very honored to be part of a journalistic team that covered this event, this certainly life-changing event for all of us, and and certainly for the United States, perhaps the world.
For all the bad that happened there, what this country can do, what total strangers can do in the face of adversity is absolutely amazing and absolutely heartening.